Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Ben Thompson. I am here with Mark, someone who has worked with us for tinnitus retraining therapy via telehealth. 12 months ago, about 1 year ago, Mark was going through some of the hardest times of his life, which he's going to explain in detail.
Mm.
Now, a year later, his tinnitus is significantly better, significantly reduced. Mark, please give us some background of who you are and how we found each other.
Who we are. Wow, I'm an educator and I work at a private Christian university. And yeah, I led quite a stressful life. The work-life balance was probably out of whack and for a long time. And wow, I've started the tinnitus journey a year ago, like you mentioned, and tinnitus journey, that even puts a positive spin on it. I'm not even want to do that. But yeah, December 20th, 2020, darkness descended. Acute tinnitus was raging. And yeah, it was a pretty desperate time. My wife was, we were grasping at everything, reaching out to ENTs, medical professionals, and my wife, who's the researcher of the family, given my job and vocation. But yeah, she was online looking at tinnitus retraining or habituation conversations, neuroscience, and I was already kind of cued into that kind of thing from things I've encountered in my work with OCD folks and neuroplasticity, and so I was already set up for that. And I was down for that kind of an approach. And yeah, eventually I found Dr. Ben here, and you were talking a language that I thought had potential. And so yeah, we signed up about April, where something got going there. And yeah, it's that's how we found one another. And it's been a great journey to move from darkness into light a little more.
And the purpose of this podcast is to share an inspirational story of, hey, Mark is a normal guy. Mark has a job.
Hopefully.
Mark has a family. Mark is just like any of us. He's made some good decisions. He's made some bad decisions about tinnitus, and you eventually got a lot better. You eventually have habituated. So tell us about where you're at today, and
Mm.
then we'll go into the details of the steps along the way to get there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm to use language we've used in some of our sessions. How aware am I tinnitus right now? I would say if I go to look for it in my mind, I can find it. It's still there. But the awareness as I go through my day that there's something background noise is way under 5% of my waking time, I would say. And the volume, I would say, is probably a one, or on activities that kind of amp up my limbic system, my whole system. It could get a little, maybe like a two, but still it's not very noticeable, and it's quite quiet compared to what I have gone through, how we started in this whole last year.
When we first met, you were describing that you were going through an intense process with the tinnitus. It
Yeah.
was loud. You were having some panic attacks. Tell us about really those first weeks to months and how was
Yeah.
it affecting your life?
Yeah, I say darkness descended. This was the tinnitus. The onset of this was, it came from nowhere to constant noise in my head, and I would have put the volume quite high, 8 or something like that. It's a little difficult to categorize because there's a great deal of subjectivity and perspective in here, but it definitely was the greatest health crisis I had ever faced in my life, and I didn't know how to manage. I had hopelessness, despair that I could ever be quiet, function again. My job requires, significant periods of, being in solitude and researching and writing and things like that. And it was all filled and all different. And so, yeah, I'd say the first 8 weeks were a critical period. That the hardest times were when there was no ambient noise. You're just laying in bed or something like that, and it's just you and it. And I was afraid to even, it's in one ear, it's in my right ear. I was afraid to put that side of my face in the pillow, to just kind of lock it in. And like I said, that there were two definite kind of panic attacks where it got very emotional, very hopeless. And that's why I say it was it was the greatest health crisis I didn't know how I could function and how I would be able to move on. I despaired of life, really. It was a very dark time
Yeah.
for me. And my wife, bless her soul, was hanging in there. And we had a couple of panic walks that she just had to take me around the block to change my outlook, my atmosphere. It was just so oppressive.
Yeah. And I have some notes here that you went to the ENT doctor who
Yeah.
evaluated, they did a hearing test, and the ENT doctor determined there's no medical abnormality in the structures of your hearing system.
That's right.
And then that led us to working together eventually, and
Mhm.
eventually proceeding with hearing aids that were fit and programmed according to the sound therapy protocols that we follow.
Right.
So around that time, you reached out to me, and the company was formerly known as Pure Tinnitus, now is known as Treble Health.
Mhm.
Telehealth, tinnitus,
Yeah.
education, counseling, focused on the brain changes, focused on retraining tinnitus, promoting that neuroplasticity. And what happened next? How much time did it take over the weeks and months following, when you have the
Mhm.
hearing aids that we have programmed properly, when you have the professional counseling to take away the stress, anxiety, the fears, the unknowns, and replace that with the facts, the education, the knowledge?
Yeah.
What happened over the next months and weeks to come?
Yeah. I would say that, the biggest tool that I got from you, Dr. Ben, was the empowerment of the knowledge of what tinnitus is, and how there's kind of it's kind of a natural response that you need to kind of counter mentally with what you put your mind on. But I also appreciated from you, it wasn't just this is no big deal type of learning those types of techniques, that this is natural, that this is nothing wrong, that this is something you can manage. But it was also moving into the whole body type of thing that I really appreciated that. So we had meditative types of things. It was a great time for me to reassess kind of a hectic life that I had led. I became very convinced that my tinnitus was exacerbated by stress and maybe brought on by it. I don't know. In my case, I know there are many sources of tinnitus, but stress was a big one. I was burning the candle at too many ends. And so just lifestyle changes, COVID helped that too. That naturally kind of reset everybody, but in my life too, less demands. And so a better work-life balance. Started to notice, got these sound generators in my ears, and got all used to dealing with hearing aids. Had a slight hearing loss, but it wasn't really a candidate that the ENTs would say that you needed hearing aids.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not accident. I think that my tinnitus is in the ear that had the greatest loss, whatever mine was. And so, yeah, wearing those, we start to even, play with the amplification so that I can hear a few more things in the range that I wasn't before, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that started to get a few every 8 weeks or so, a step down. I was what I'd call it of the volume. And where I would notice that even on the bad days, it wouldn't be as bothersome or invasive, intrusive as it used to be. And here again, I don't know how much there is subjectivity in your perception. Maybe I'm just habituating and doing that to it. But I would say that the volume, I think, just on a raw scale, the volume is less. And so there's that, the physical side, but there's also the mental side of learning not only how to live, but also what to think about, and train your thought processes when you do notice this. And so, yeah, I started to gradually move through the months, and here we are about 10 months later or so to the place where I am now. And it was a gradual step down in volume and also awareness, and yeah.
Are you
Uh,
able to read in quiet places right now?
yes, I do.
Are you able
Like I
to
said, I have no notice of this, that it intrudes of what I'm doing.
are
Yeah.
you able to fall asleep without sound therapy?
Yeah, I do that. My tinnitus, I know some people have had tinnitus so that it does intrude into sleep, but mine has never done that. I've always been able to fall asleep, but it was just terrifying the moment you wake up and there it is. But mine never kept me from falling asleep anyway.
Like going to a cafe or music, does that do anything or no effect?
Well, my tinnitus, I did notice that it would be amped up when the ambient noise would be greater. Okay. And so if the environment was noisy, then I started to notice the tinnitus was rising and seemed to be, so I had competing and it became quite noisy in my head.
Hmm.
And even during, and I would say right now, I can go into a noisy place, but the tinnitus, I'm aware of it and it's a little more active, I would say, but it is still nothing to what it was those early weeks and months. And so I can still continue. And I think the hearing aid for people of my vintage, I think that I've become a believer in that it does help me in places where there's a lot of conversation going on for me to be able to focus on where I need to, the part of the conversation I need to. And so
That's
I
great.
think that's important for me too, just in my own journey.
And as well as keeping the best brain health possible, having the best access to sound is one of the
Hmm.
factors that have been cited in medical research as something that we can choose to do more of, something that we can act upon that has an effect of
Right.
keeping the brain healthy, keeping the risk of negative brain changes down, keeping good health.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
remember when you told me that a couple of meetings ago, and I took note of that. People of my, we need to do all we can to conserve our brains.
yes, absolutely. And I think your brain will be just all right.
Well, I hope a little better than just all right.
Yes. Well, I'm happy to share your story. And the reason we're doing this is because if you saw this video 10 months ago, it probably would have helped you a lot. And that's the feedback we get. If anyone who's watching this right now on YouTube feels that way, please give a comment, say, yes, this helps. You can comment and say, yes, this helps.
Yeah, that's very true for me, and since this, my journey here with tinnitus, other people have asked me, it's amazing the people that you run into that find you have this, that they talk about there that you didn't know about. And so I've been able to point several to your direction. But yeah, videos like this, I've seen them all, and they're all encouraging. There's hope. This is not something catastrophic that is life ending. That's for sure.
Yeah. One of our main messages is there are things you can do.
Yes.
And you followed the protocol to a T, right? You
Yeah.
followed this protocol very well under our guidance, under my guidance,
Mm-hmm.
which is the recommendation. I meet someone on the street, they say, hey, my mother, my sister just developed tinnitus. What should they do? I say, well, scientifically, they should follow a system where there's a professional, an audiologist trained in tinnitus retraining therapy to provide consistent counseling and education over a matter of months, plus the use of ear level devices for sound generators. That's
Mm-hmm.
the foundation. There's other things that can be done too. For anyone who's listening, I highly recommend keeping that as your foundation. And Mark, you've done that. So were there any hesitations along the way, or maybe before starting, where you're saying, is this really going to work? Or
Well, early on, when I experienced my first step down, I started to have hope that this wasn't catastrophic, life ending. And that was part of the process. When I'm gaining knowledge, when you are giving me counseling, I'm getting my toolbox of meditation, stress relief. I started getting therapeutic massage, and those types of things are, like I said, the whole life things I will keep doing for sure. And like I said, COVID and this tinnitus kind of gave me a reset to schedule management and a balance. That is, the body keeps score, and my body was saying scores unbalanced here. So
yeah.
it's been very helpful for me, and it's changed my life. Really, it's a threshold moment for the rest of my life.
And what is it that excites you in your life these days?
Oh, well, I'm currently enjoying a season of sabbatical. Our university grants that every 7 years. And so for the next 6 months, I can really concentrate on focus on some topics and projects that have been kind of languishing.
Mhm.
Time for some travel and enjoying our family. We got 4 kids, and they're all in the process of launching, recently married, new relationships. And so it's a busy time with good things for sure.
Excellent. Excellent. So you are just like many people who are watching this, and you did follow the
Mhm.
tinnitus retraining therapy through Treble Health. It helped you. I'm happy to share this story. I want to, just remind the audience, anyone listening, is that it was a bumpy road at the beginning. You were trying some things out at the beginning, and some of them probably didn't work, and you probably felt stuck and had some dead ends, and that's okay. We can still get better even if that happens. Would you agree?
The body is an amazing thing. And I think that our job is to work with it and explore and to understand that when we do that, we can really start to, put the sail up the direction the wind is going and enhance it. And so, yeah, what you brought to me in this journey was that. And the better we can do that, the better things will go, I think.
There's a natural process of improvement that the brain and the ears can do with tinnitus, and
Right,
that's the wind. And as you're saying, for a sailboat, we can use our knowledge and our tools, and we can adjust
right.
the sail and adjust the angle of the boat, and then we're able to go faster and get to our destination quicker. It's a perfect
Yeah.
analogy.
Well, thanks. Yeah,
All right,
and
Mark.
thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us here on today's podcast. For anyone who is new or who has been watching videos for a while and would like professional consultation, you can find us at treblehealth.com. Mark, I'll leave the last words to you.
Well, I would just say I highly recommend the offering, the professional services that you've offered. I benefited from it, and I recommend it to others that I meet along the way. And
Thank you so
so,
much.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, take care, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.